I'm reading from my novel, Burning Questions, which is a mystery thriller, and here's the setup. Someone's burning down a bunch of old hotels in Gloucester, Massachusetts, where I'm from. And Kenny DeSimone, a rich kid, has the bad luck of witnessing the torching of one of them. He turns up dead the next week. The coroner calls it a teenage suicide. The kid's got school problems and gender issues, he says. And he also has a very beautiful but very poor girlfriend, Christina Lima, who's Portuguese, the daughter of a lobsterman and a fish cleaner at a processing plant. She's way beneath him class-wise. Kenny's mom's a good Catholic, and she's not going to stand for a verdict of suicide because it's a mortal sin. So she gets her family white shoe law firm to investigate, and suspiciously they put Nate Lewis, an inexperienced recent law graduate and surf bum, on the case. Before long, he's pulling skeletons out of the DeSimone family closet and getting pressure to pin the death on the poor girl, Christina. They want him to say she's a gold digger who took revenge on the rich kid when he dumped her. So here's here's Nate Lewis interviewing Christina Lima at the Tavern restaurant in Gloucester, which is as fancy a restaurant as you can get there, which isn't saying much. And he's getting her drunk. I heard you and Kenny were planning on eloping. That was Kenny's dream, she said, choking. He was going to try and transfer to a prep school. He had this fool plan we could get married and he could talk them into us living in an apartment off campus because we were married. Said if he got into Andover or Exeter or Choate that they might agree to it. What about you, Christina, I asked. Were you going along with that? She reached down into her purse on the floor, retrieved the crumpled Kleenex and blew into it. She didn't seem all that glamorous at that moment, just a wounded girl in a woman's body. She looked away, then straight ahead. With both hands, she gestured from her face to her breasts, and then down below the table where my line of sight couldn't go. This is all I got, Mr. Lewis, and I ain't no fool. I ain't gonna have it forever. Don't get me wrong, I love Kenny. I did. And he loved me, but who knows down the road when I'm not so slim. I'm my mother's daughter. He's a rich kid and I'm from the Fort. Fort's a slum, by the way. I want a diploma, Mr. Lewis. I get it, I'm the first one in my family who ever did. My papa's got a lobster boat. He's over 60 and all broke down from the work. My mama spent 20 years gutting fish at one processing plant or another. Comes home smelling of fish, hands all red and cut up. I got 2 brothers working on the fishing boats and a sister with 3 little kids who never sees her old man because he's off on the boats himself all of the time. I want to go to school to become a secretary or something so I don't end up like that. But if you married Kenny, I began. She cut me off with a decisive wag of her finger. That family don't like me. They thought I was a gold digger or something, but the opposite's the fact, Mr. Lewis. You can call me Nate, I said softly, leaning forward to encourage her. Just a week before he died, we had this fight about it. The family was working overtime and ruined it for us. His sister hated me ever since I woke up after having too much to drink and found her in the same bed as me with her hand right between my legs. He was talking about us getting married, I said. Kenny, the kids they kick kids out of school to get married. I got to finish high school first. I got to do it. It means a whole lot to me. He said, more than I mean to you? And I said, Kenny, I got to stay in school, get my diploma. She looked up from the plate and briefly caught my eye. When your dad's a lobsterman and your mom cleans fish, you just don't understand what finishing school means to them. So I said, we can get married in June. It'll only be a few months later. And he gets up and says, you don't love me enough, Christina, and he walks off. He didn't understand, she said, her shoulders drooping. Mr. Lewis, Nate, know how I get my spending money? Babysitting. I don't get no allowance or nothing. You know who I babysit for? Girls my age, a couple years older. They're on welfare, Nate, food stamps. She grabbed my attention with her dark eyes and wouldn't let go. And they got 2 kids already snotting and pooping up in their 3-room apartments. Know what their idea of fun is? an evening at the local tavern, and I don't mean this place. And when they get up the next morning and the bed beside them is still warm and empty, they walk into the kitchen and they see the guy left them a 10 on the table. They know what they are and all they're ever going to be, and they sit there crying until it's time to feed their little brats. And I get some of that money for watching the kids. Nate, what Kenny couldn't understand was the fear poor people like me got. Folks with money, they don't know fear. On the outside, I look, I know, men want me. But inside, I see myself growing fat in 3 crummy rooms in the fort. A couple of kids who don't know their daddy and $10 on the kitchen table come Sunday morning. And I have fear. I can't help it. I walked her back to the fort. She was sloshed and held onto my arm like I was a crutch. I didn't mind it at all. She was a cozy young thing, and she was giving my libido a damn hard time. Her place was as run down as she said it was. Paint was peeled everywhere. The front stairs were worn into the shape of a washboard. There was a porch light, but the bulb cast only a weak yellow onto warped boards raw from years of traffic. I could see why she wanted a diploma, to be a secretary, to protect herself. I helped her up to the front door. The steps sagged underfoot. She looked at me like she expected me to try to kiss her, like it had become a date. Well, that's just what guys did when they had a chance with her. But I just shook his hand. I watched her fumble, unlocked the door, and waited to make sure she could get herself up the dim staircase to her folks' flat without tumbling back down. She certainly was well worth kissing goodnight, though I was glad I took the high road. She was a decent, naive young kid in a knockout woman's body, the kind of combo that ended up killing Marilyn Monroe. I began to care. I'm going to read another section. This is Nate at the rich mama's house talking to Mama, Kenny D. Simone, dead kid's mama, and his sister. His sister's named Trish. Trish scrunched up her nose as if she thought that just the thought of Christina smelled bad. That bitch said vile things about me, didn't she? She saw me raise my eyes. She told Kenny I came on to her. I assume she told you that too, spreading her venom. Anne, that's the mom. Anne held up a hand to stop her daughter's rant. Look, I said with an assuring nod to the old woman, if it has nothing to do with what I'm investigating, it won't be in my report. She stopped pushing things around her plate and looked at me with disappointment, as if I didn't get it. It's not what you finally put in the report that concerns us, Nate, she said gently. It's what you ask people and who you ask. I want you to remember that Bruce will soon be marrying Trish. Your investigation can harm their marriage. Do you understand? We just had all that news about the police raiding the Stonewall Bar in New York and the homosexual riots that followed, so it's current. We all know that sex sells papers. If your investigation stirs up rumors, you can hurt us. I hired you to look for a killer and a motive, not to inquire into the private affairs of my family or Trish's fiancé. I'm placing a lot of trust in you. You must be discreet. Christina's credibility just went up 100% in my book. It was a marriage of convenience. I cut a piece of roast beef and stuck it on my fork. I can't be responsible for that rumor. The innuendo's out there. It's even in the paper work you gave me, Anne. The shrink laid it out. Kenny was, let's say, confused by his relationship with Trish's fiancé, who everyone seems to know is. I wagged my hand and let the last word hang there like the victim of a lynch mob. I took a bite of the roast beef. It was damn good. Anne put down the fork. So there's a report that says Kenny killed himself because he was confused about his relationship with Bruce. There was tension in her voice that I hadn't heard before. We all know that psychiatrists are always fishing for an easy sexual explanation for behavior, but I'm not paying you to corroborate that absurd conjecture, Nathan. I'm paying you to find out who killed him. That's what I mean by being discreet. I must have looked baffled. To me, an investigation meant getting to the bottom of the matter. The substance of what they were asking me to do was to accuse Christina, the arsonist, or perhaps even the police, of murder. Mr. Cleary wanted me to conclude that Kenny's death was an accident. Everybody had an agenda. The fog was clearing. I could see now why I was hired to do this job. No professional would accept such restrictions.